religious movement as neither Muslim nor Hindu. Its members followed the teaching of their founder Guru Nanak and believed in the importance of worshipping a single god. Their heartland was the Punjab and Amritsar, with its golden temple their holiest place. In the early 19th century, they had a strong leader, Ranjit Singh, who created an empire running from Peshawar to Kashmir to Multan and east to Haryana. He made Lahore his capital, and as long as he lived, the British did not feel strong enough to attack him. Ranjit Singh cleverly realized the importance of discipline and a well-trained army and had hired Europeans to train his troops.
Okay, so
A
now
key,
basically wait for a while, beta. Now Hamza Faisal, wait. They are the Sikh. The Sikh is also an other religion, okay, because they were very extremist in their religion. So the movement, or you can say that movement or the campaign, was not only for the Muslim and Hindus. Basically, that person, the Guru Nanak, he was the person that people just followed him and follow his teaching and followed whatever he just introduced into the people basically. This heartland was the Punjab and Amritsar, because in India especially that Amritsar and Punjab is full of the Sikh community. Okay, if you people know that Punjabis and the Sikh community, they belong all to the Amritsar and the Punjab in India. With its golden temple, their holiest place, in the early 19th century, they had a strong leader, Ranjit Singh, who created an empire running from Peshawar to Kashmir to Multan. Definitely at that time, and east to Haryana. There was no separation of the Pakistan or the India, so these all are Peshawar, Kashmir, Multan. They all were in the subcontinent at that time. He made Lahore his capital, and as long as he lived, the British did not feel strong enough to attack him. Ranjit Singh cleverly realized the importance of the disciplined and well trained army and had hired European to train the troops. The next one, a key moment, the British conquest of Sindh and the Punjab. Okay,
मैं
Aisha, continue.
फिर उसके बाद मैं
This is not about. Okay, so the a key moment, the British conquest of Sindh, the Punjab, that how the Britishers basically conquest the whole Sindh and the Punjab. As Aisha just read it, like the secondly, if they control the Indus Valley, because Indus Valley is connected with the whole subcontinent. Basically, the British government ensures to control Russian influence in Afghanistan, sent an army in 1838. As we all know that we have different neighboring countries like Afghanistan now, or you can say uh, China, India, because they all were you can say came into the subcontinent at that time. That person who appeared too friendly with Russia, this was an unwise and disastrous decision. The proud Afghan ambushed the British army in their mountain passes, and to 20,000 troops who had set out from India, only one returned to tell the tale basically. So this is the reason when the people Britishers attacked into the Afghanistan, so that person, he was the Amir, he was a warrior at that time. So he just controlled all the situation over there in Afghanistan and how he dealt with them. So definitely they just came in front of each other in form of battle or war. So 20,000 troops, they were died over there. And what happened next? Defeated and upset the British. Okay. Then turned in Sindh without any excuse. Another army led by General Napier invaded 1843. Sindh's broad landscape were easier to conquer than the mountains of Afghanistan. The last big prize for Britain was the Sikh Empire. Ranjit Singh died in 1839. Definitely, the Sikh community was very strong at that time, and they just conquered, or you can say they were ruling in the Punjab and Amritsar, in the Amritsar. So that person, that the leader Ranjit Singh, when he died, so Britishers got the chance to conquer, or to capture that the Amritsar or the Punjab. The war with the British began 1845. The Sikh army was tough and brave, but in 1849, Gulab Singh, the Maharaja of Jammu, deserted them, and the Sikhs surrendered. Definitely, because although they were
Calcutta for the future
Calcutta,
Pakistan.
it's Calcutta.
Calcutta, Calcutta for the future Pakistan. These conquests by British were very
Britain were
significant.
very significant.
significant Sindh and the Punjab came together under British rule and in 1947 would become the heart of the independent Pakistan. However, the British gave Kashmir to Gulab Singh as a
As a
reward
reward
for
for deserting his Sikh
deserting
allies.
Phil Ellis. Consequently, that mainly Muslim religion was combined with region was combined with Jammu under a Hindu ruler, causing problems which have yet to be solved.
Be solved. Now they were discussing
See chapter
about the
18.
okay wait. The Jammu means Jammu Kashmir. Okay, basically the actual name is the Jammu Kashmir, and you can people can the Sindh and the Punjab came together under British rule, and 1947 would become the heart of independent Pakistan. However, the British gave Kashmir to Gulab Singh as a reward for deserting his Sikh allies. Allies means the participant or the people, those who belong to that particular uh, group. Consequently, that mainly Muslim region was combined with Jammu and a Hindu ruler. But unfortunately, the Jammu Kashmir was, you can say, it went into the h- under the Hindu ruler. That was the person was ruling the whole Jammu Kashmir. That was the Hindu, causing problems which had yet to be solved. The next one, the government of India before 1857. What was the government? How they were running their government before the 1857? Can anybody read
Miss
it?
Mary.
Sure.
Miss Mary.
The East India Company was in charge of trade and business, but from 1784, the British government had political control through the Governor General, whose base was Calcutta. Britain's main aim was to protect his conquest so that trade flourished and taxes were collected were collected. There was a British fleet in Indian waters
Waters and an army of.
and an army of 300,000 men 300,000 men, of whom only 40,000 were from Britain. Their expenses were paid through Indian taxes, so one of the most important government officials in Calcutta was the collector, whose task was to ensure prompt payment of taxes.
Now they are talking about that East India Company that was, you can say, gaining most of the revenue and the profit through their trading and through their businesses, but it was under control by the British government in 1784 because of the political issues and some and the different issues. And after that, Britain's main aim was to protect its conquest. Definitely they wanted to protect their all the conquest area. Okay, what were these, whatever they have conquered at that time. So in British fleet means the army, okay, the ship army in Indian waters, and an army of 300,000 men, of whom only 40,000 were from Britain. Most of the people in the army, they all were Indians at that time. उसमें मुस्लिम भी शामिल थे, उसमें हिंदू भी शामिल थे, ठीक है, ये सब उसमें शामिल थे, लेकिन जो ब्रिटेन से, they were only 40,000 people, or you can say soldiers, in the army of 300,000 people. Their expense were paid through Indian taxes, whatever they were, you can say, buying at that time, or whatever they were just bringing from the Britain into the subcontinent or in the India. So they were paying through the Indian money, Indian currency, basically. Okay, they were using the Indian rupees to pay the taxes. So one of the most important government officials in Calcutta was the collector, whose task was to ensure prompt payment of taxes.
Miss, can I read?
Yes, Fatma.
Lord Dalhousie and the
Your voice is
doctrine
very low, Fatma. Please read a bit louder.
Lord Dalhousie and the doctrine of lapse. The Mar the Marquis of
Marquis.
the Marquis of Dalhousie became Governor General in 1848. In his 8 years' rule, he tightened British control in many ways. He
Annexed.
annexed the state
मिस
of
परिया की आवाज
Awadh.
नहीं आ रही सही से.
I can hear her. Okay, Fatma, try to
Annexed,
read a bit louder.
annexed the state of Awadh Oud, a remnant of the Mughal Empire, where a British resident was posted in Lucknow. The ruler Wajid Ali Shah was sent to Calcutta as a prisoner, causing widespread resent-
Resentment
resent-
among the people.
resentment among the people. It was Dalhousie who came up with the doctrine of lapse. If an Indian prince died without an heir, then the rights of his relatives to his lands were considered lapsed or ended and passed on to the British government. By this method, more Indian land passed under British control. Among those affected were Nana Sahib, the adopted heir of the Peshwa, hereditary,
Hereditary
heir
Prime
to
Minister.
hereditary prime minister of the Marathas, and Lakshmi Lakshmi Bay, the Rani of Jhansi. In
Hmm.
other princely states, the British residents appointed by the Governor General made sure that their rulers obeyed the government in Calcutta. The Indians deeply resented their policies. Dalhousie was also a keen modernizer. He was determined to bring to India what he called the three great engines of social improvement. I mean railways, uniform postage, and the electric telegraph. He had the first railway line started in 1850, the first electric telegraph in 1851, and a cheap postal service in 1854. All these were a great success, and one of their important effects was to bring all parts of the subcontinent in closer contact with each other, giving rise to a sense of
Okay, now
Indian
wait.
nationality.
Okay, the Lord Dalhousie and the doctrine of lapse. The Marquis means the noble people of the British community. That person, Dalhousie, that he became the general governor general in 1848. In the 8 years rule, he tightened British control in many ways. Definitely, they wanted to continue their conquest or their kingdomship in all over the subcontinent. Annex means that to add the new area. So they introduced the new areas with a different name, with their own name. The state of the Awadh or Oudh, a remnant of the Mughal Empire, where a British resident was posted in Lucknow. The ruler Wajid Ali Shah, that when the person he was posted in the Lucknow, that person who was living over there and he was ruling, like the name was Wajid Ali Shah, was sent to the Calcutta as a prisoner, causing widespread resentment among the people. It was Dalhousie who came up with the doctrine of lapse, that is means the policy, the sentence, the meaning of that word, that this is the doctrine of lapse, the policy of an Indian prince died without an heir, then the right of his relative to his hand were considered lapsed or ended. It means basically and passed on the British government by this method. More Indians land passed under British control. This is the reason most of the lands that were, you can say, acquired by the uh, Britishers, the especially because the reason is क्योंकि जो भी lands थी वहाँ के रेसिडेंशियल लोग रेसिडेंशियल्स की या फिर वहाँ के लोगों की जिनकी अपनी ओन प्रॉपर्टीज थी, that was acquired by the British government. Among those affected were Nana Sahib, the adopted heir of the Peshwa, hereditary prime minister of the Marathas, and Lakshmi Bai, the Rani of Jhansi. In other princely states, the British residents appointed by the Governor General made sure that their ruler obeyed the government in Calcutta, and they just imposed all their rules and regulations. Those people who were living in the Calcutta, the Indians deeply resented these policies. Definitely they were, you can say, irritated, or they were very confused, and the people very aggressive to follow these policies. Okay, because that is the legally right to adopt the property of their grandparents, of their parents, but unfortunately that was acquired by the British government because they have already introduced the policy, which is the name that was the name of doctrine of lapse. Dalhousie was also a keen modernizer. He was determined to bring to India what he called the three great engines of social improvement. No doubt they worked very well. They worked very hard for the in the subcontinent. Like they introduced the railways. They introduced the colleges and schools, uniform postage, and the electric telegraph. He had the first railway line started in 1850, the first electric telegraph in 1851, and the cheap postal service in 1854. All these were a great success, and one of their important effect was to bring all parts of the subcontinent in closer contact with each other, giving rise to a sense of Indian nationality. Okay, why were the British successful? Who gonna explain me? Now you people need to explain.
For part partly because of their strengths. Their navy was then the strongest in the world. Their army, though small, was well armed and highly disciplined. Their leaders, on the whole, were clever, cunning, and fearless. They knew what they wanted and concentrated on getting it. They were very proud of themselves and confident of their superiority over other races. But another important reason for their success was the weakness of their opponents, which they successfully exploited. There were there was little unity among the Indian rulers, who frequently fought each other, and the British took advantage of this by cleverly using them as their allies.
Okay, now so they were talking about what was the reason of British success. Definitely, they were you can say they were increasing their strengths. How? Just because of that, because उनकी जो भी आप ये कह सकते हो उनकी टीम्स थी या जो भी उनके ग्रुप्स थे, बेसिकली they were full of the Indian people. उनमें ब्रिटिशर्स या ब्रिटेन के लोग बहुत कम थे. This is the reason you can say this is one of the strategy they were using. फॉलो नहीं कर पा रहे होते तो what happened at that time?